Hello and welcome into WGR550.com. Matthew Coller here, along with UB Bulls reporter Sloane Martin. Sloane, how are you?
I'm doing good.
The UB Bulls coming off a win against Florida Atlantic University, in which the defense really showed up. It was at the beginning of the year a big storyline with the UB team, just how good their defense would be. Thought to be a weakness, but the last couple of weeks they've performed very well, especially against Florida Atlantic.
And it really has been a surprise this season. Last year they were kind of mid-pack in the Mid-American Conference in terms of points allowed per game, and then this year they've turned into a real strength of this team. 3 defensive touchdowns last week against FAU. That was the first time in program history and a really big kind of point of pride for this defense that was really doubted coming into the season.
And offensively, though, the UB team has struggled the last 2 weeks in a row against Penn State, which was to be expected, but last week against FAU, which is not a bad win by any means at all. I mean, they were thought to be very even teams, and they come out on top, but having to come away with a couple of defensive touchdowns to get your scoring, that's not something that's going to be repeatable or that Lance Leipold is going to want to rely on throughout the season. The offense has got to be better.
No, it's absolutely right. They don't want to rely on that. You can't expect that to happen every time, especially as they get closer to the Mid-American Conference portion of the season. This, by the way, the last game before they play against Bowling Green, so kind of that final tune-up before the MAC. And they know that the offense has to be more consistent. I know, it's such a cliche in sports. Everyone has to be more consistent, but that's what head coach Lance Leipold said this week. I mean, we're looking at last week where senior quarterback Joe Licata had only about 100 yards or so and didn't really look like himself. He was off, misfiring throughout the game, and it really was the defense that kind of carried them through, and like you said, can't depend on that throughout. I think they really want to get back into the rhythm the offense kind of expects to run with.
Yeah, if anything else, maybe it was just a bad day for Joe Licata. Maybe he just didn't have it. It was pretty hot down there at Florida Atlantic. So this week it is the Nevada Wolfpack,
yes,
which should be a pretty good matchup. Now last year this game, the out-of-conference, the big school game, was against Baylor, and going into that game I think Baylor was a top 10 ranked team. They were very good, and UB really couldn't keep up. But this time around, Sloane, it seems like things could be different.
Well, Leipold has talked about, too, that he likes playing FAU. They were in Conference USA. Now we have Nevada, which is Mountain West Conference. And those are, as he said, really comparable to what they're going to face in the Mid-American Conference. This is to see what they have, see how they're going to compete, see how they match up against a really comparable team. And that kind of conference, it just happens to be 2,800 miles away.
So what do we know about the Wolfpack, other than that Duke Williams is from there? That's the Bills' safety, Duke Williams, and Colin Kaepernick, too.
Yeah, this is something Leipold talked about, too, is that they have a kind of program where they can recruit from these California junior colleges. And don't we all wish we can recruit from California, right, in football? But they can get those kind of players that have college experience already, and then they don't have to miss any time transferring from a junior college. So they have a lot of players like that on their team, but offensively they're really looking to be multiple, especially run the ball with their quarterback. Now Leipold said that they're somewhat familiar with facing this kind of scheme. It's what they had primarily prepared for facing FAU. Their starting quarterback, who ended up missing the game with a sprained ankle, he was that same type, or in that same type of scheme. So the Bulls defense is, knows what to expect, but this is going to be kind of their first test in that type of system.
So what have we thought so far of the Lance Leipold era? We're only a couple of games in. The record is a winning one, and they have a chance to have a 3-1 record for the first time in a long time. I think that's a good sign.
And yeah, it's been almost 2 decades since they've had that 3-1 record, and considering this is a really kind of young team in its Division I era, that's going to be a really big benchmark, I think, to get if they get that win here, to go 3-1 heading into the MAC. They were kind of looked over in the Mid-American Conference and still kind of are, and I think that would send a big message, because they didn't have a really easy non-conference schedule. I would say it was pretty solid. Again, although I do want to mention they are going up against a Nevada team that has played 2 top 20 teams. They are 1-2. too, so it's always hard to tell how do these teams match up against what competition, how is it going to look like. But Lightpole, I think, has done a great job of bridging that gap and really giving Bulls fans quality football. I've liked what I've seen. I'm sure as football fans, especially ones who are more progressive, looking at stats, want to see different things on the field, you're really not pulling your hair out when you're watching him either, which I mean as a compliment, because he seems to make smart football decisions on the field, and it's really kind of a modernized system, and we just have to see if he's going to get more of those wins. But if he's doing what he's doing right now with really none of his players, I think that's a really good sign.
3:30 Saturday here at UB Stadium, Nevada and UB. It's supposed to be a great day. There's some pregame entertainment, so come on out if you have a chance. Pretty cool. Sloane will have more at WGR550.com after the game. Thanks for watching.